too. I have an amazing framework to share with you, and it's how to answer any difficult question. Any question. And these are some steps that I recommend that parents consider when they get stumped by a question and something that your child asks you about that just floors you. You might feel very, very surprised or shocked, concerned, scared. There's a lot of different feelings that can come up for us when our children are asking questions. And sometimes it inhibits us from having certain conversations because we're fearful of some of the difficult or tough questions a child might ask us. What if there was a simple framework that you could implement that would help you in any of those situations? Whether it was a question about sexuality, about violence, or a belief, or something, if they're asking a question of something that you've experienced, anything that might freak you out, okay? And I'm going to walk you through this, and I think this is really amazing, and I thought about this, and I laid it out really simply so that you can really walk through these simple steps for any difficult question a child may ask you, okay? All right, so let's get started. Step one is you want to have a poker face, okay? Let's say your child asks you a question. For example, let's say you're asked, "Hey, Mom, Dad, what's a condom?" And you're like, "What? Where did this question come from? Why are you asking me in the line of the grocery store? This isn't the right time for this question." And your mind could go in a million different places because you might feel concerned. You might be scared, and you might be wondering, where in the world did this question come from? All of those are normal feelings, for sure. But the most important thing I want you to consider and to practice is to have what I'm calling a poker face. But it's really not just your face. What I'm saying is I want you to be mindful and aware of your body language, your expression. How is your face changing? Do your eyebrows go up? Where did this question come from? Does your tone or your pitch of your voice change, or do you sound concerned? Where did you hear that? What sort of expressions are you showing from your body language and your tone? Okay, because those are very, very powerful. And if you don't be careful, if you're not aware of how you sound or how your face is looking when you get this difficult question, you could shut down communication immediately between your child and yourself. Okay? They might learn that you're not the person to ask questions to if you don't get this down. All right? So practice having a cool, calm, and collected reaction to any question. All right? That's step one. Now, step two is while you're doing that, I need you to check in with you and your feelings. How are you feeling? Are you freaked out? Are you upset? Are you concerned? Are you scared? Are you embarrassed? How are you feeling? And learn to recognize what that looks like for you and to get in touch with your feelings, because this is going to help you decide whether you're going to answer this question now or a little bit later. Okay? If you're having some strong feelings around the question, this isn't a question you want to answer in that moment. Okay? If you're really freaked out or scared or concerned, you might need to buy a little time to think about how you want to respond. And that's okay. And that will be important for you to do. All right? And I'll tell you how to do that in a moment. All right? But check in with your feelings. What's going on with you? Okay? The next thing I want you to do is to praise the question. You want your children to always come to you with questions, even if they are bizarre or there's a lot of them. At the end of the day, I think that's what all parents want. They want their children to come to them versus going to Mr. Google every time they have a question, and who knows what they'll learn online. But to make sure that they're involved and they know that what questions their child has, and that they feel like that door is open to have those conversations. In my experience, that's been what all parents really want, right? And I bet that you do too. And in order to accomplish that, I think it's important that we praise our children for asking questions. Even if you're not sure what you're going to say yet, you can say, wow, that's a really interesting question. I'm so glad that you ask me and you come to me with your questions. I love when you come to me with your questions. Okay? Doesn't that feel good? That will make your child feel like, I had a good question, right? And everybody loves to have a good question. So praise your child for their question if it's appropriate, right? Depending on what the situation is. A lot of times that is a good way to buy a little time for yourself too, is be like, that's a really good question. Then the next step is you might need some more information before you answer. And that's usually a good way to gauge how much you're going to be saying. So step number 4 is to get the 411. Get some information. Wow, that's a great question, sweetheart. Where did you hear that? Or what makes you ask that? Or what do you think it is or what it means? What do you think a condom is? What do you think that term means if they're asking you what a certain word is or something, okay? Ask them what they think. This is gold, okay? Because I can't tell you how many times a parent gets a question and they have some big, huge, long conversation that they didn't really need to have. There's this really funny comic that I've seen where it's these 2 kids sitting on a bench, and one of the children says something to the effect of, I asked a question about where I came from today, and I had a lovely conversation about sperm and eggs and conception and this, and that. But I still don't know if I'm Dutch American, Irish American, or African American, right? They wanted to know where they came from, what heritage they were, what country they came from, not about the birds and the bees talk. So sometimes we need to stop for a moment and ask our children and check in to see what is the real question. What are they really asking? And is it the question I think they are asking? Because sometimes I think we dive in a little too quickly without having that information. And also, you know what? Sometimes you might need a little background in order to answer the question, like the context of the question. Where did they see it or hear that question, or where did it come from? Did they learn it from a movie? Did somebody use that word at school? Where's the source? Where did this come from? I think that's an important thing to find out before you answer any question, okay? Step number 5 is I want you to stop and pause for a moment. It's okay to pause. And you also may want to ask for some time before you answer, okay? So if you're having a lot of feelings, like I said, I think it's important to answer that question a little bit later. And so you could say, what's a condom? Let's stick with that example. What's a condom? That's an interesting question, sweetie. I'm glad that you asked me that. What do you think it is? You get some sort of context. Okay, well, that's close. I want to talk to you some more about this, but now's not the right time. Why don't we talk about this later when we're home, maybe before you go to bed, and you can ask me that again, and we'll talk about it then. Okay? So you can sort of schedule a time to talk about it a little later. Or maybe wait to the car because you're in the line of the grocery store and you don't want to have a big, long conversation about what a condom is in the line of a grocery store with everyone staring at you, right? And that will help children learn when is a better time to ask questions as well. So you're sort of teaching them that too, okay? Plus, you can freak out and call your best friend or your partner or someone, consult somebody and say, hey man, have you ever had this question? I don't know what to say. I'm a little freaked out. What would you say? And you just bought yourself that time to help you have that poker face still, right? And really, really respond to your child's question instead of react to it. Okay? Now, if you're not having a ton of feelings, you're just sort of like, that's a interesting question. I'm not really sure what I'm going to say, but I'm ready to try to say something. Then answer, step number 6, is to keep it simple. I'm talking just a couple of short sentences, okay? What is a condom? Well, did you hear about that at school? What made you ask that question? Did you need one? Like, where's this question coming from, okay? And once you get that sense and you're ready to answer it simply, you can say something simple like, well, it's basically a glove that goes on the penis. It's a piece of latex that covers the penis so that people can protect their bodies from having babies until they're ready and from diseases. Short and sweet. Simple. And then just be quiet for a second and listen for what your child has to say. Now, usually one of two things are going to happen here. Either one, your child is going to be totally satisfied with the answer and be like, oh, okay. And they might run off and play or do something else or whatever. And that's totally great. And you gave them a short, simple answer, and that was enough for them at that time, and that's fantastic. Sometimes, if it wasn't enough, if it was maybe too simple, your child will likely have another question. Okay? So the next question might be, but why would somebody have sex for any other reason than having a baby? Right? Maybe they think that's the only time that people do that. That's not uncommon for children to believe, okay? So then you've got this next follow-up question that you're going to have to also answer simply, okay? What's so important is please, just don't lie, okay? It's better to be simple than to lie. So important, because later on, your child finds out, hey, that wasn't true. They lied to me. Then you are not a credible person to go to with questions. And they won't go to you anymore. And I know you don't want that. Parents, you don't want that. I promise you. You want your children always coming to you and to feel like they can talk to you about anything. Okay? And the important part of that is that you do step number 7. And this is where you are open and you're honest. That you keep things short and sweet, but you're open and honest about your answers, okay? That's so important. Now, sometimes you want to maybe capture this teachable moment, this opportunity that just fell in your lap because your child asked you a question, to instill more of a value and or an expectation of their behavior, okay? So there will be times when you need to go a step further with your difficult question. And in those cases, this will be step number 8, where you're going to want to set clear expectations and, of their behavior, okay? Clear expectations of their behavior. So, maybe your child uses a word that is inappropriate. Maybe they use a slang word that they heard, and you don't want them using it. You're like, that's not a word that gentlemen use or a lady uses or, something like that, okay? You heard them use a word that you don't want them using in your house. It's inappropriate, it's a bad word, or it's a derogatory word, okay? Then I think you could set an expectation of like, hey, look, some people use that word, but I would really like for you not to. And in our house, I don't think it's appropriate because of this reason. So you're going to set an expectation of behavior and explain why you feel the way you do. Don't just say because I said so. I remember my parents telling me that on more than one occasion. No, why not? because I said so. And you're just like, oh, it's so frustrating when you hear that. So do your best to stay away from that phrase. It's so easy. And, I know sometimes we lose our patience and we just say it. We just say it. I know. But do your best to not, if you can, to set some clear expectations of how you would like your child to behave, or what you believe around that topic and that question. Okay, and that's your chance to do that after you answer simply if it's a question that warrants that. All right? Now, the last thing you can do, if you need to, is to actually role play with your child and have them practice a scenario if that was something that was appropriate with the question. Okay, so maybe your child, let's say your child's a little bit older when they ask what a condom is, or or maybe a question about can they buy them or something like that, like a value-laden question. You might want to role play with your child about, hey, what do you think someone should do if they, are in a relationship and they're thinking about having sex and they need a condom? What do you think they should do in that situation? And you can do these like what if scenarios. And this is great too, is to role play with your children. Maybe some of the challenges they might face in those situations. So like, let's just say even something totally different. Let's say your child is being bullied or pushed around at school, someone's being mean to them. You can role play with them about how they might respond or react, and you could pretend you're them for a moment and what you might say and be like, okay, it's your turn, now you try. So there's a lot of opportunity in these difficult questions that come up with our children to have these really deep and meaningful conversations when they're appropriate and when we're ready for them, or when that door is open for us. Okay, so I know that was a lot of information, but those 8 steps can really help you get through any difficult question, help you feel more calm, collected, help you stop and listen, take a moment to consider what you might say, or if you need more time to get back to your child because you're having a lot of feelings. I hope these pointers were helpful. In the download section, I did include a little handout that has little pictures of these different steps that walk you through this framework, so that can support you and you can practice this on maybe an easier question. And then when you get the difficult ones, it makes it that much easier to handle. Okay, I hope that was helpful. If you tried this, I want to hear all about it below. Write your questions, your comments below in the section below the video, and support each other. You guys got this. This parenting thing is a challenging job, but it's worth it and you can handle it, and I'm just here to support you in any way I can. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in our next video. Bye-bye.